Welcome to the Embodied Wisdom Podcast.
I really want to know what got you into relationships and how it translated from like love, romantic, loving relationships to transforming really your whole life, your healing journey, so to speak. I want to know how there's got to be a story there. I want to hear. I want to hear the story.
I don't think the story is that unusual. Just having a series of relationships that didn't work and then started to figure out, well, there's got to be a different way of doing
Hmm.
that. And what does it mean to do our relationships consciously, intentionally, um, as opposed to doing it, for the sake of validation or because we're lonely, we don't want to be alone. Those relationships don't work. Um, but the way that I've come to think of it is that when both parties approach it from a place of wholeness, like we are each whole and complete, and then we use the relationship intentionally as a way to grow and to evolve and to heal, because we all have blind spots. That's just part of being human. But if we use that relationship intentionally, but using concepts like projection in psychology, that I'm not going to see it here behind me, but boy, can I see it over there in you. But if we approach it with the assumption that if it's there, it's here, and the more whatever they do gets us, the clearer the sign, the more clear the sign that we also do that in some way, uh, then there's no way to fail at a relationship, because as long as you're growing, there's no way you can't go wrong.
That reminds me of Eckhart Tolle. He's like, I forget which book it was of his, but he speaks about how people are looking for the love relationship in order to fulfill something within them that they don't have. But in actuality, the love relationship is just the closest mirror to reflect back to you what you are.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's also from Ram Dass. He
Uh-huh.
says you can do relationships consciously or unconsciously.
Yeah.
Consciously is where we know that only we are responsible for our own happiness, that there isn't anybody out there who can make us happy. And how unfair to put that responsibility on someone else. You are going to make me happy. Yikes. It's a lot of
Yeah.
responsibility.
Yeah.
So if we're going to do them consciously, meaning that we know that we are responsible for our happiness. There's three levels. Level one, the other partner doesn't want to play at that level, but enough of it works, right? Sex is good. You cohabit well together. You travel well together. Maybe you co-parent well together. There's enough of it that works that then we can say, okay, well, I'll stick it out. There's enough of it that's good. And then we can reclaim all that energy, the resources, the time that we would otherwise spend looking for the one. And we can focus that on our own process of growth and evolution and transformation. Level three is where both beings are fully realized. So already the relationship becomes like a dance, a sacred dance where we mirror that for each other. I don't think we need to worry about that one yet. Level two is the juicy one, right? That's where both of us are using the relationship consciously to rather than make the other person wrong. You did this, you always do that. It's like, okay, ouch, that hurt. Why does that hurt? Right? Why does that sting? Because maybe it's the same behavior. I mean, maybe you and I have a friend, Joey, who's always late for lunch. So he shows up with me an hour late or 20 minutes late. And I'm like, in a huff, like, how disrespectful. He only cares about himself and his own schedule. But there you are the next day having lunch with Joey. It's like, great, he's late. Let me catch up on that email. Let me check out the news. Right? So why does it sting so much? Why do I take it that personally? And there's always other stuff going on, and it doesn't excuse his lateness, right? But if we're using relationship consciously, we're using all that stuff to look at the blind spots and why we do the things we do.
Yeah, it's the perception piece. It's the part that says, well, if the same thing happened to two totally different people, they're going to have a totally different perception of the event. So
Exactly.
it's not really the event in and of itself that's either right, wrong, whatever we want to label it. It's
Exactly.
actually the way we perceive that event. Oh, you did this to me. Yeah, that's what I tell my clients. Whenever you get triggered, good. go into that, see what's going on all the way underneath.
Exactly.
What are the beliefs popping up for you? And I could not agree more about our relationships mirroring back to us who we are. So if we get out of that judgment, we say, okay, I'm
Exactly.
not judging this thing, but I am going to investigate. I'm going to get curious and I'm going to
Exactly.
wonder why I feel this way when Joey shows up late. Why?
Exactly.
What is the belief that I'm perceiving from that? For my own journey, that was me. When I went through my healing journey, my husband and I, we've been together 19.5 years, and I
Wow. Wow.
started before him. And so he wasn't on board right away, but I just kind of said, hey, I'm going here and I don't know what's going to happen with us, but I'm going to get myself right. Like, I'm going to get myself so happy. And at first, that was very uncomfortable for him because he's like,
It
whoa, you're
was.
disrupting our toxic pattern. What are you doing? But then eventually he saw the piece that I was holding. And I think he's never expressed this, but I think a piece of him was like, yeah, I want that. I
Yeah,
want that
exactly.
piece. And
Exactly. And good for
so,
you for having such a
yeah.
strong desire for freedom that you were willing to do this on your own if you needed to.
Well, yeah, because it's not really ever on our own. It's just our perception, right? But
Right.
also, what I'm seeing with a lot of people, to what you're saying, I'm seeing with a lot of like healers. I say that loosely because no one's actually healing another person. But what I see with a lot of people doing this work in the world is a lot of them are single. They're divorced. They've gotten out of those toxic relationships. And it's almost like it's necessary for most people to do that in order to get that big healing. And I see it both ways because obviously that wasn't my story, but I see it as like, I think that is what most people sort of need to just be like, time out. I'm not focusing on anyone else. I'm just going within me. So
Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
think it's either easier to do it alone? Do you think it's easier, when you're in a couple? What's your take on that?
I think that the most effective way it's in a level two relationship when both partners are committed. Because of the blind spot things. There's things that in a vacuum, it's hard to see. It's like, the joke about the master who spent 30 years in the Himalayas in a cave, and finally she came out, and word gets out, and suddenly the villagers are surrounding her. It's like, master, what have you learned? And, she clears her voice because she hasn't spoken in 30 years. And my children have conquered anger. Oh, wow, she conquered anger. What else did you learn in 30 years? And she's like befuddled, like 30 years to conquer anger. So she goes, I conquered anger. Yeah. What did you learn? I conquered anger. Right. Back to the cave.
Oh, anger is such a gift. Yeah.
Mm.
And yet there's a lot of people, even on their healing journey, that really struggle to see themselves as the same as what's being reflected back. They really I've noticed that. And with myself, even where I want to look at him, and there are times that I really want to make it him. Oh, it is you. It is
Exactly.
all you. And I think really coming back to the truth of like, there's really no other person there. It's all a reflection of you. And that's such a hard concept to grasp.
It's
But
it's almost impossible to get
yeah,
there. And that everything's a reflection of us. And again, it doesn't excuse anybody's behavior. And it doesn't mean we have to stay in a relationship that is less than honoring. But if we're doing what you're talking about, which is like using everything that comes up as an opportunity for growth, then you can't fail. You
yeah.
can't go wrong.
But what do you say? So in my work, what I do with women is we really define the pattern that they've created, and we track it back to childhood. We pull the pain out of it and we look at the beliefs. And so I feel like once they have the awareness of the beliefs and they're like, oh, well, this makes so much sense why I believe, I'll give you my example of my commands around men. Men aren't safe. Men hurt me. Men leave me because my dad, he was abusive. He was violent. He had a sex addiction. He died of AIDS. And
Mm,
so I had all these commands around men that I didn't realize was drawing all those kind of men to me.
exactly.
Right. And so, in order for me to really look at that and see, oh, that makes sense. This is what I do with my clients because I think that that's what shines a light on the pattern and why it's there. So from there, I'm assuming you have some sort of a practice like that. From there,
Yeah,
what do you do
sure.
to help guide them to really call in the right thing, or how do you deal with those beliefs?
Well, I mean, it all begins like you're pointing to by going within and asking ourselves why. There's only one common denominator in every one of those arguments and every one of those relationships. So why do I, at the very least, why do I keep attracting that kind of person?
Yeah.
And my friend Darren Main, who teaches yoga, he says it's really important to your point about your story about your dad. He says it's really important to heal our relationship with our parents so we can stop dating them.
Hmm.
And,
Yeah.
and so that's part of what we do. It's like,
It's
right,
big.
begin to pay attention to the patterns.
Hmm.
Why do I keep attracting this kind of pattern? Why do I keep getting sucked into that argument? Because it's the same boring argument, only with a different actor, a different co-lead, but it's
Different
the
face.
same repetitive, boring patterns and arguments.
Oh, it's
So
not boring. Come on, it's dramatized and it's,
yeah, but see, I don't get off on the drama. There
you
there have been
don't?
times there no. I'd rather have peace.
Well, many people don't know they think they want peace,
Yeah,
but you wouldn't know it by their actions and by what they're attracting,
you would
right?
not.
You would not know that.
Not.
Yeah. So I think really that just like you said, that awareness going within, asking yourself the deep questions, getting so intimately connected to yourself is
Yes.
really the key to true healing.
Yeah. And with I'm in a great relationship now that, it's I mean, there's always work, but this one just feels really natural, and it doesn't take a lot of work. But I got to the point before, like we were talking about, where I'd rather be alone in peace than be in something that's gonna pull me off my center and being caught up in drama all the time. Like, no, I don't need that anymore. I don't want that. And with my ex, we had an agreement, which, because to me, our commitment is to our own growth and the growth of the other, even above what the shape of the relationship, what the container of it is. So we had an agreement that if at any point the container, the form of the relationship began to interfere with either one of our growth, then that was the time to move on. And sure enough,
How long
that's what
was
happened.
it?
7 years.
Uh-huh. That
And the love is
reminds
still
me.
there.
That reminds me back, I forget which tribe this was, but every 7 years that they would come back to the relationship and kind of check in and be like, hey, is this working? And if it wasn't working, they'd just dissolve it and find other partners. But the system that we're in, and tell me if you agree with this, but the system we're in, there's such a shift in romantic partnerships. I think that marriage as it stands is dissolving. I think
Mhm.
it's really going to need to give birth to a new kind of relationship, one that's not like catastrophic when you part ways, of like your whole
Really?
world melting down when you part ways because it's supposed to be for an eternity.
Well, that's the thing. We've been conditioned. We've been
Yeah.
told that it's forever and till death do us part. It's like, wait a minute, who said? That's, to me, that's not the measure of a successful relationship. How
Heck
long you stay
no.
together. To
What
me,
is
the
the
measure
measure
is,
then?
is growth happening? Are we evolving? Are we becoming better, more complete human beings?
Yeah.
Because we can't go by the feeling, because every relationship is going to have ups and there's going to be downs.
Yeah.
And too often we bail when we're hitting one of those valleys. But so if we can't go by the ups and the downs, because they take work, for sure they take work. But then what do we go by? So what works for me is growth happening. So even if we're navigating a rough spot, as long as I can see that growth is happening, then okay, then I'll play.
See, there's times where I didn't see, like, if I look back, I'm like, there was no growth there. There was no growth there. But it was like now from the perspective of the here and now, I could look back and be like, all of it was the stepping stone to what became. So yeah, I go back and forth on the idea of this lifelong monogamous partnership, I'm like, really? I know, and this is like person to person, but is it really beneficial for most people to have one partner for the majority of their life, or for the average human? Or is it just this time period that we're in where there's this crazy growth that the world has never seen before as far as expansion and consciousness, that it's really hard to stay on the same level with someone? We keep vibing out of these partnerships. What do you think?
I'm with you. I think it's hard. But then I go back to the level one, right? Maybe there's enough of it that works. Maybe they don't have to be at the same level. Maybe they don't have to have the same interest in global transformation and personal growth, but enough of it works.
Yeah.
Enough of it works. Maybe you have a great time together. You enjoy traveling together. You live well together. You enjoy going out to dinner or the movies or whatever it is that you enjoy. Then you can choose that.
Yeah. Yeah. But
It's such an individual thing, such an individual choice.
no, totally. And when with this upswing of the feminine coming on board, with the rising of the feminine, what I'm noticing is that everything is shifting within the male and the female. The roles are massively changing. Women, they're not needing, back 100 years ago, 200 years ago, we needed men to survive. We were property of men. We weren't even allowed to vote to win. How many years ago?
1920, yeah.
1920. So we weren't even considered, not even close to equals. We were property. And so here we are, and we're seeing this massive change where women are stepping into leadership, women are rising up. And I think it's throwing off the whole masculine feminine balance
Totally.
to where, because women don't need men, they
Not
still
only that,
want
but
them.
more than half of college graduates are now women. And
Yes.
I think it's in from 2017. I think that, so the numbers are probably even more dramatic now. But the last study that I remember seeing is from 2017, where in 40% of heterosexual households, the woman is making more than the man.
40%.
40% as of 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's what, 8 years ago. And so part of the problem, what you're talking about, is that the masculine is having to redefine itself.
Mm-hmm.
For so many men, who am I? I'm the provider. But
The
if suddenly
protector,
I'm
provider.
the protector, that's another one. The protector, the provider. But the provider to me seems to be such a big one. And the one that's experiencing a shift as women are making more money and out earning so many men, that a lot of men are having an identity crisis. Like, who
Yeah.
am I if I'm not that?
I'm seeing that. And whenever I find men such as you that are not only on this healing journey for yourself, but calling other men forward, I just get so excited. I'm like, yes, men need you, because they are secretly, silently, just diminishing in their identity. And that's a good thing, because like you said, once you really have to let the old identity die in order to take on the new identity. But they need someone like you to step in and be like,
Yeah.
here, been there, done that. Let me show you the way. Right?
Yes, exactly. The patriarchal system, man is superior than the masculine, superior than the feminine.
Yeah.
Doesn't work for anybody.
Yeah.
Like if we look at the majority of suicides in the world, by far, like, I think it's 75% or two-thirds middle-aged white men who are still the group that holds the majority of the power in the world. So you would think that the group that holds the majority of the power would have things great and things will be working out great, but they're committing suicide way over the rest than anybody else. What's
Yeah.
up with what is up with that?
Well, because, the system has really been, it's really screwed all sides, really. For anyone to have any superiority over another, and I don't mean if like race, gender, any of that stuff, age, if there's any sort of exalting of one category, it's not going to work, because
It's not gonna
we are
work.
going to thrive when we see everyone as ourselves,
I agree.
because we're all interconnected. So yes, it's
Agreed.
just as much, the system is just as much, turned against the males as the females. And right now with that, like The balance trying to come back online, I could just see how that would really weigh heavy on men because now women don't need them. So guess what? Their behaviors, that toxic masculine that these men are still, they don't know how to change and they have it, pulsing in their field. And yet women are like, no, I'm not going to put up with that. I got my own money, buddy. Like
Exactly.
I want a divine partnership, that
I'm not
balance.
settling. I'm not willing to settle.
Yeah.
Understandably.
And I love that, even though so many of these beautiful people who are healing are not in significant relationships, I feel like that's necessary for them to get so clear on what they want, to be so effing picky that they're just not taking whatever crumbs are falling on the ground anymore.
Thank you. Right. And it goes back to what you were saying before, like how we see ourselves, our reflection, our relationships, or a reflection of how we see ourselves. So if we're not valuing ourselves, if we're willing to settle, um, because we're afraid of being alone, then that's all we're going to get in return is that same level of self-worth and self-value, which is not very high if
Yeah.
we're selling out. It's like we're not honoring ourselves. How can we expect anybody else to honor us?
Yeah. So what is the work that you actually do when you have your clients that come to you and they have these challenges around their romantic relationships? What is the process that you really take them through?
Well, I mean, it all goes back to the individual, as you know, and goes bottom line is self-awareness and self-worth and self-respect. For me, it's a combination of coaching and breath work, which I first did breath work 35 years ago. My dad was a psychiatrist. My degree's in psychology. I was on a track to get a PhD. Until my first session in breath work, I jumped track. I never went for the PhD because it works so fast. So it's that
That's
combination of,
crazy.
I
Yep.
know, because I have yet to come across anything that heals that past trauma and clears all those misunderstandings from childhood that we're not good enough, that there's something wrong with us, that I'm not worthy of love, all that BS, because none of that is true. It gets healed, like
Mhm.
actually healed. And one thing's understanding it here, right? Which is definitely better than not understanding it. But I can't tell you how many times I've gotten people who spent 20 years in therapy, 30 years in
Yep.
therapy, rehashing the same old crap. So
Yep.
they get it, they understand it, but the belief, the trauma is still in the body, is still embodied, and the breath work clears it and fast.
Hmm. That's so funny because you're my second interview today where she was a psychotherapist and she went into not exact she went into breath work, but more like quantum healing. She's like, yeah, I don't want to actually my third in 1 week of
That's incredible.
three of you on that path and then tapping into the spiritual aspect. And I would say all the aspects of the being, the body, the
Yes.
breath, the spirit, the mind, the soul. Why would we just work with the mind, this limited
Thank
little.
you. I mean, I know things have evolved, but when I was in college and I was going for the postgraduate, for the graduate degree, it's like it was all mind. It was all clinical psychology and statistics and this and that. Is like no, no. And then there was a counseling psychology track, but no awareness of the body or the spirit.
Yeah. Have you read the book, The Body Keeps Score? The
Yeah, I
Body
haven't
Keeps.
read it, but I reference it. Like I've
Yeah.
read pieces of there, here and there, and I reference it because that is so true. I mean, the title says it all. The body keeps a score.
Yeah. And if we don't deal with the trauma trapped in the cells, then what good is talking about the problem? That isn't even the same
I,
frequency as clearing it. Yeah.
I know.
So
I
I feel like
exactly.
as these now, you were able to feel it with when you first stepped into breath work, but the science is now showing that talk therapy is useless.
I don't know that I would go as far as saying that it's useless.
Well,
Like
maybe those are my
understanding.
sweet maybe those are my sweet words and my beliefs. I just think when you have so many modalities out there that work so fast, why would you spend so much time and money in
I
something?
agree.
But some people they're just really obsessed with talking about their problems. Some
Yeah,
people
and
love being the victim. They love talking about their
that's what you
problems.
just nailed it, right? That's why they get stuck rehashing the same old crap for decades. And I remember one guy specifically who had done what's like I forget what it's called. Is that the screaming therapy? I forget the name of it. Uh,
Primal
primal
screaming,
therapy,
primal
primal
screaming.
screaming.
Yeah.
And he'd been going for like 30 freaking years screaming about his mother. It's like, come on, come on. You should have cleared this by now. And yet
30?
30 years, I'm not kidding. I'm not
No.
exaggerating. But when he came to me and I was like, dude, let's breathe and let's clear this so you don't have to be doing that anymore. No,
Hmm.
he didn't. He wouldn't want to. He didn't do it. He went back to the screaming, to the primal therapy.
It's some people are just they're way more committed to their victim story. And I
That's
get
it.
it. I was there for a long time. I was very committed. Don't try and tell me I'm not a victim. I got the long list and you just sit down and I'll tell you all the ways that I'm a victim.
Yeah,
But
no, I get it.
the truth
Get
is
it.
there's no freedom in that.
I get it. I get that it is the single most difficult thing to do in human existence is to pop out of that victim mode. I understand that, but if you want to be free, there's no way around it.
Yeah.
There's
Tell
no
me a
way
little bit
around it.
about the breath work that you really love, that you really identify with, that you love to use.
It was originally called rebirthing. I think there's called that in some circles, and I stopped using that name, decades ago because it confuses people, right? It confuses
Yeah.
people being born again, in a fundamentalist Christian sort of way, or it creates an expectation that you have to relive the process of birth, which is traumatic for everybody involved.
Yeah.
Um, but
Mm.
there's no need to do that, right? And so I just call it breath work. And you breathe in a certain way, in a circular, connected way for about an hour, sometimes an hour 15. In a group, sometimes it can go a little bit longer, and amazing stuff happen. Like I said, I've yet to come in terms of healing past emotional, psychological trauma. I don't know anything more effective that works as quickly and
Interesting.
as deeply. And I work with people who, sexual abuse, incest, rape, etc., victims of violent stuff, and it gets healed. It actually gets cleared.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear some. Do you have some really good transformation stories?
Sure. Since we're talking about relationships, I had a woman probably in her mid 50s when she came to me, super successful, like in the business professional part of it, like vice president of a multinational, but a company in which a vice president actually meant something, right? It's not just like a bank where you have a million vice presidents. She was really a vice president, like the top three in the whole
Wow.
world in her company. And yet in the personal arena, had never had a relationship that worked ever. So we started doing, she did a couple of my retreats. We started understanding the ego mind and how that works. We did multiple breathwork sessions. And I'll never forget the last session of the last retreat that she ever did. She had recovered memories of sexual abuse when she was a kid, and she had totally forgotten about it. And so fascinating because she had ended up moving back to the town in which it happened when she was a kid, and she had bought a house down the street from where the perpetrator lived without even remembering what had happened. So she had circled back subconsciously just to place herself in a situation where she could actually clear it. So after multiple sessions, she recovered the memory. And sometimes I probably worked with her harder than anybody else in 30 years because sometimes I had to like physically, like almost wrestle with her. Um, and she felt completely safe with me. So it wasn't like a power thing. It was like she was fighting off, and I was like trying to keep her from harming herself and bumping into furniture or something.
Yeah.
So I had to like literally hold her down in some ways. And the last session of that last retreat that she did, she found herself in the room, and she realized that only she could let herself out, and that where she realized that there was a part of her that didn't want to get out because her
Wow.
father had I think it was polio, so hadn't been very present
Uh-huh.
for her. So the perpetrator, who happened to be her pediatrician, had become her source of support and love and tenderness. So there was that part of her that didn't want to give that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But as long as she was holding on to that and keeping herself in that room, symbolically, she couldn't be free. And
Yeah.
within that was on a Sunday. On Tuesday, she was having brunch with a friend. And the friend goes, "Oh, I don't know why I hadn't told you this, but you need to meet so and so." Long story short, I ended up marrying them. And they're still together, have an amazing relationship. So it goes back to that
Wow.
phrase, which is paraphrasing the Course of Miracles, that it's not our job to look for love, but to look within ourselves for the obstacles to love. How are we blocking love? How are we keeping love at bay?
That totally reminds me of, I use the example from more than almost all of the relationship with my husband. I was like this, come no further.
Exactly. Or this, right?
Yeah. But it was more like this. It was pretty abrupt. And I didn't know it till I started seeking and really looking within. But I had these massive blocks that created this huge, deep wall around my heart that was just keeping everyone at bay. And so I had to incrementally take it down brick by brick by brick to really feel safe to let someone love me. Because I believed at the core of my being that I was unlovable. It was my biggest command meaning the biggest limiting belief that was tracked on every single traumatic event in my childhood. And so until I saw it, I didn't understand why I had so many sabotaging behaviors until I found the command. And then I was like, that makes sense. If you don't believe that you're lovable, how could you believe someone when they say they love you?
You can't.
You can't.
It doesn't make any sense. It's good for you. I mean, that's so beautiful and empowering and courageous, so honorable that you were willing to do that work, because it's hard work. It's heroic work to look at that stuff.
Yeah,
You know,
but
stuff,
I
stuff
was
that,
I was one of those people, Christian, that I was for me, I was either going to take my own life
yeah,
or I was going to heal it, because there's no way I could have lived with the pain another
yeah,
second. And so I was just one of those people.
yeah,
And that's why when some people they're hesitant to change it, I'm like, you're not as desperate as I was, because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to keep going in that way, that I
yeah.
just wouldn't. I was
I get it.
very, very suicidal. So,
I was the same way. For me, there was no option. I had to get free.
right. And so if that's the case, then I don't really feel like I was courageous at all. I felt like it was do or die. It was either the death of my physical being um, or I heal. And then in the moment I made that decision, oh, I'll either do one or the other. At that moment, it was like, oh, then I must be able to heal myself if that's even an option that I'm coming up with in my mind, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, I feel like a lot of people are walking around with the pain and they don't realize that once they give up that pain, they have the freedom to literally create their identity from scratch.
And their lives.
Yes.
And you know what? I totally get what you're saying. And that it was a do or life situation. I don't think that takes the heroism away. It doesn't. You did the work. You were willing to look at the stuff and to face those inner demons when the
Yeah.
majority of us are running away from it. We spend our time running our lives running away from that stuff,
Yeah.
self-medicating, to not feel, to not see, to not remember, self-medicating, whether it's drugs or alcohol or food or sex
Oh,
or shopping,
yeah.
whatever it is. And
Yes.
and so for me, it's heroic. Like
Yeah.
when any of us is like willing to like look at ourselves.
I totally agree. And I might be just diminishing my own courage, because, even when I talked to my brother, because we had a really interesting childhood, as you could just imagine, lots of trauma. And I tell my brother, because he struggles at times, and I'm like, look at us. We took on this lineage because, in my opinion, we chose our parents. We chose all the traumas that we were going to experience in this life in order to achieve something, right? I believe that personally. No one has to adopt that. That's just my way of taking full responsibility for everything that happened to me by saying, I chose it. I chose this lineage. And For what reason? I must have came here to do some really big shit. And so I tell him that because I'm like, look at us. We took this on. Here we are. We're literally healing the epigenetics from, we're talking
Yes.
some really shitty epigenetics. If I just tap into, my father's side, it is just horrific, right? But here
Yeah.
we came to clear the stuff. So yes, you're right, Christian. We are so courageous and heroic to take on this lineage, to come at this
Yes.
time when these portals are open. Like,
I
let's
agree.
integrate these shadows. Let's
I
create
agree.
the new earth together.
And let's say something a little bit more about epigenetics. So, because that's
Yes.
proven scientifically, that trauma gets passed on. They did studies on grandchildren of Holocaust victims
Yep.
who were exhibiting some of the same unhealthy behaviors and patterns of their grandparents
Yep.
because that trauma had been passed on. And so they were also defending against that trauma. But the good news is that if the trauma can be passed on, so can the healing.
Yep.
And
Absolutely. And I have seen that.
I have seen it too. And I've seen it go backwards too, right? So if,
It
if
does.
physicists tell us that time and space are illusions,
Huh?
then it can also heal in that direction. Why
That's
not?
right. 7 generations back and forward is what the evidence shows. And
Yes.
I've tested it in my own kids because I come from, like, both my fathers had abusive dads. I'm sorry, not both my fathers. How is that possible? Both my father and my mother had abusive fathers. So the abuse came down, it's thick, right? So I
Yeah.
tested in my kids. One of my daughters has the same commands around men. Men aren't safe. Men hurt me. Men leave me. She
I
has
can't
mine.
trust
The other
men.
one doesn't, right? But neither one of them have that kind of a dad. Those go back. So
Right.
it's just interesting how when you look and you're right. With my clients, when we're working through their stuff, they're like, I didn't have that experience. Well, we're tapping into their epigenetics. So they'll get pictures in their mind because I utilize breath work, but I also utilize the imagination to tap into their subconscious mind. So we go back through their epigenetics to pull up
Beautiful. Beautiful.
certain memory trapped in their DNA. And so they'll get this picture and they'll be like, I don't get it. And I'll be like, no, stay with it, describe it. And if they're open enough, they'll get the full picture and they'll know exactly who it is. Oh, this is my dad's mom, this lady, with the same commands. So we can clear the whole lineage line just by tapping into the codes and the information from our DNA. It's brilliant.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yes.
And I think to get to the place that you are pointing to, that we're all interconnected, it's key, right? Because otherwise it's so easy to point the fingers, like, you did this to me, you were never there, daddy was
Mhm.
gone, mommy did this, but daddy didn't do that,
Yeah.
right? But as long as we're focused out there and holding them responsible for our happiness, for our state of being, we just gave our power away again.
So what I have them do, because you're right. We gotta heal the unforgiveness towards our parents first. So I have them go back in time, and then we go back to their parents as a child, and I have them pick up their mother, their father as a baby, look deep in their eyes, connect with them, see the pureness of their being, how they came in just full of wonder, full of purity. And when they have that moment with their parent, and then they just receive all the downloads that of whatever life that they experienced that created the patterns, right? But how they can go back to them as just this pure little baby. It's just everything shifts in their life after that moment because you are not separate from your parents. You are literally a string, a different bead on the string, the next one down, but you're connected to that same string. So for you to
Yeah.
see anyone else as anything but you is to really miss the whole point.
Yeah, and you just named the other, I'm not dogmatic about anything, because if you help me see it a different way, I'm willing to consider
Open.
it.
Mm-hmm.
But there are three things that I don't see a way around if you want to be free. Well, the first one was popping out a victim, right? We got to be willing to tear up that victim card, which is hard. To me, that's the hardest one. The second one, forgiveness. It's not, I don't see any way around it, because as long as we're holding somebody over the fire for what they did or failed to do, our hand is also getting burnt. And we've heard it, how many times. Forgiveness is really for us, for our freedom. And it doesn't make it all right, whatever they did or didn't do. It's for our freedom.
Yeah, it
And
has
it
nothing
can't
to do with
be
them.
half-assed, forgiveness. I can't tell you how often I've seen people say, oh, no, I already dealt with that in therapy. Great. In breath work, there's a whole other layer where forgiveness actually happens in the body, in the heart. And then the third one, it's going within. Right? There's no way. If you want to be free, there's no way around being willing to do what we're talking about, which is going within and asking the hard questions and facing ourselves and why we do the things we do.
Fourth?
Three.
Oh, just three. It's just the three.
Three. Yeah.
Okay.
Going within, forgiveness, victim card.
I totally agree with that. All those are necessary for you to heal completely, because you got to own all of life. As long as you're saying they did this to me, I'm like this because of them, then you're never going to own your life. You are going to constantly be the victim to all the circumstances around you.
That's it.
You have to be like, this is all mine. I own all this shit. It's all mine. And now I get to change it.
Yeah. And it's tough because there's a part of us that gets off on being the victim, right? Otherwise we wouldn't do it. It's like, oh my honey, I feel so bad. Can you get that for me? Yeah, it works. We can get whatever it is that we want, but at what price? Like, we got to make ourselves diminish and feel bad and feel disempowered.
And we lose the freedom piece.
You lose the freedom and the self-love
and I'm a life path 5 Christian. So freedom is very big for me.
For me too.
I have to feel free, and I have to experience a lot of change. I can't have mundane. Do you know what life path you are?
I must be the same one. I can't remember the system. I've been told that I'm a 9, but I don't know if that's the same system.
Then I guess you're a 9. I don't know what a 9 is.
I don't know what system that is. It might be a different system, because when you say that, I relate 100%.
Well, I think all beings desire the need to feel free. Like, because we're all living in some kind of a prison, and they're all different sizes, but we're all living in a prison.
For me, as I know, I can hear it in your voice too. It's not only of my freedom, but I don't want to be anybody, depending on me. It's like, no, I want somebody who's equally free. And then we choose to be together and walk life's paths together, but not out of need, not out of dependency, coming from that place of wholeness and sufficiency.
Yes. And so my husband and I were both secondborns, which means that you're secondborn too?
Yep.
So that must be part of it, because secondborns have this like deep desire. It's why we're rebellious. We like pave the new way. We're the black sheep. When everyone's walking that way, we're walking this way. Like we crave that switching up the program and the systems. And so him and I are both like that, and very independent. So it makes it easier. But it's very much a work in progress, because there'll be times where I'll get triggered and I'll turn into that little temper tantrum 2-year-old, and I have to go back and be like, oh, I'm sorry, but we're in it together. We're like, it's our opportunity to own our shit and say, yeah, there's that old paradigm popping back in it again, and owning those little slip ups, but then also having so much grace for each other and saying like, yeah, I get that. Like, we're just figuring this shit out. There's got to be this level of humility, because another thing I see with a lot of people in the spiritual world is like, they're already healed. They're already perfect.
Those are the ones I worry about. Those are the ones I worry about.
Right. And so when I'm working with a client, I'm like, don't get some idea in your head that I don't get triggered and I don't slip up and I don't have my little temper tantrums, because I do. We're on this journey. And I think as long as we're in the meat suit, we're going to have these things, because we're dealing with the biology, the DNA.
Yeah.
But
I mean, and to give anybody who might be watching hope, like, it does get so much better. Like, I can't remember the last time I reacted and then regretted something I said or did.
I do. Today I did.
For me, it's probably 10, 12 years ago. And it was with my sister, of course, who gets our goat, but the people that are closest to us.
Good for
Um,
you.
but that forgiveness thing is so important to extend it to self,
Yep.
right? And to let ourselves off that cross of perfectionism. Yeah, we don't have to be perfect. And yeah, we're going to make mistakes. And like you just alluded to, if we make a mess, we clean it up. So
Yeah.
sorry.
And the
I wish
quicker the better.
the quicker the better. And that's what happened with my sister. Like I reacted and I knew that it was happening in the moment. And there was a conversation we'd had like ad nauseum about it had to do with our mother and whether what was going to happen with her when she started to lose her mind and her presence. And I just like remember making the choice and letting it like come out of my mouth, but in the moment already feeling bad
Yeah.
about the way that I said it. So I left. I came back an hour, said, "Look, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about the way I said that. This is the way that I wish I would have said it. Right?
Yeah.
Clean it up. Clean up the mess."
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
You beautiful soul, you, Christian.
Well, it takes one to know one.
Well, I don't know. You've got me on that 12. I'm thinking 12 years. Um,
I've got a few
probably
years now.
probably every day I have something that I'm like, why did I say that?
I've got a few years on you.
How old are you?
60. I just turned 66.
Oh, wow. You do not look 66 at all.
I
I would
know.
have thought early 50s.
I know. That's what
That's
most
how I
people
know
think.
you've healed a lot.
And the breath work. The
The breath work.
breath is life.
Breath is life.
The breath is our most loyal companion on this journey of embodiment. And we
So
take it for granted.
I do a lot of Kundalini, and I love that because it's merging both the breath work and somatic. So for me, I will feel high. I'll do that in the morning. I will feel high all day.
Yeah. Even if you do it 5 minutes, like
Yes.
conscious breathing, where it's Kundalini, or just you pause what you're doing and sit your butt down and breathe consciously, deeply, powerfully for 5, 10 minutes, it'll change your life.
Ooh, I
That's
love that. That's a good challenge to give everyone, 5 to 10 minutes a day. Now, do you know anything about face mapping?
I
Just
don't.
totally random. Okay.
Do
Well,
you tell me about it?
no, I don't know much. That's why I was like, maybe because you said breath work is why you look so young. I was like, well, maybe you know something about it. But it's basically how the lines relate to certain traumas at certain ages.
Hmm.
So it's something that I kind of dabble looking into, but I haven't gone all the way in. But I
No, I
just
don't
thought
know enough
maybe you
about it, but
knew.
similarly, I do know I have this place right here in my hand where when I fell and a rock went into my hand. But what's interesting is that I guess it's like a hand mapper or hand reader looked at my hand and goes, "What happened? What happened to you when you were 10?" And that's when I was sexually abused.
Wow.
The body knows, the body keeps the score.
The
Like you were
body
saying.
keeps the score. That's wild.
I know. I know. I
Well,
know.
and similarly, I've been told too, like the different patterns on our skin as far as like freckles and moles goes back to um,
Hmm.
our galactic history.
I didn't know that.
Oh,
That's
well,
interesting.
that's going way out there, buddy. That's going way out there. So,
That's
well,
fascinating.
as we wind this thing up, first of all, I love chatting with you. You are such a delight, full of wisdom.
Me too.
Where
Me
can
too. I feel the same way about you.
Oh, thank you. I received that.
Good.
Where can everyone find you and connect to you?
Probably the best way is my website, which is
Okay.
soulfulpower.com. soulfulpower.com.
And we'll
And
go
from
ahead
there,
and include that. Yeah, we'll include that in the show notes.
thank you. Perfect.
Yeah.
And from there, they can get my email and all that other social media, all that other stuff.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to
Thank
have another one
you.
of these beautiful
Oh my God, I would love
conversations.
that. You and I could talk forever
Yes,
and
I
not run out
know.
of juicy stuff to talk about.
I know. That would be wonderful.
All right. And thank you so much for and thank you for having the show, because I know that I can tell the depth of your work, and I can tell that you make a real difference in real human lives. And in your
Mm,
willingness to have the show, many lives are being touched. So thank you.
yes, thank you. I thank you for seeing me. Um, that's exactly what I do. I, I
Mm.
want I want people to have so much access to all the gifts that are available to them for free, but then hopefully they'll take it a step further, because I firmly believe that when you pay someone that energy exchange for them to bring you these results that you can't really achieve on your own, or if you did, it
Yeah.
would take a long time, then
Yeah.
you get to speed up your process. Because I took the really long road. I took the long road, and so I don't encourage that. So by getting people out there of like I said, I'm looking for men to, do you work mostly with men or women, or
So
equal,
I
or
think probably majority of women.
majority women? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
But
both.
it's,
But I think
but
women gravitate to this work at this point in
oh,
greater.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. But I think it gives men more permission to have a
Yeah.
leader like you walk them through it. It's like it gives them permission to do it as well. So that's why I love having beautiful souls such as yourself on the show, to be like, no, men, there's so many, because I have friends that are like, no, men are healed. They're all this and that. I'm like, that is so not true. I know so many of them.
No.
So
Yeah.
thank you for proving my
I
point.
think heterosexual men are sort of the rear guard of humanity at this point,
Hmm.
because they've held the majority of the power. And so they haven't had the need to grow and to heal, and now they do.
Yes.
And
That's
we don't, and to be clear, I'm not advocating that we go back to a matriarchal system. No, we don't want that either. Balance,
balance.
balance
Yeah,
is
but
what.
before the balance, I hate to tell you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's
It's
still
just
too much of a
it's the
gap.
way it's got to go, but
Yeah, yeah,
we're getting, if we take the bird's eye view and look down, we see humanity more equal than we ever have before, as far as race, as far as sex, as far as all that as a whole, not when we're down here in this, but
agree,
when we go
agree.
up. So we are getting better. It's just not happening quite as fast as it could.
And sometimes it feels like two step forwards and one step back. Uh,
Yeah, right?
but the progress is the progress. I mean, especially compared to 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and 90 years ago, we're talking about when women weren't even equal, didn't have the right to vote.
Yeah, so true. And yeah, and dealing with the traumas, I look at a lot with kids, female children, they all started that way. And we almost all have this command that we're not important, because not only are we female, but we're a child.
Yeah, yeah,
So, and we're still stuck with that programming until we heal it. So, yeah,
yeah,
it's just fascinating.
yeah. And the same thing with guys, right? Little boys don't cry because somebody came up with this twisted idea that only little girls cry because emotions are weakness. It's like, wait a minute, how twisted is that? Emotions aren't weakness. They're not strength either. They're just emotions, energy,
They're
energy
neutral.
coursing,
Yeah.
coursing through us. Like, think of a 2 year old having a total meltdown. A
I get,
minute later, they're
yeah,
playing like if nothing happened because
I
they
get,
have their emotions
yes.
fully. We get into trouble with the emotions, so we stuff them, we swallow them. And then if we do that enough, sadness and grief turn into depression. And if we do that enough, anger turns into rage. And
Yeah.
so that's why to me, the beauty of the breath work is freeing up those emotions.
I love that. Yeah, when I do work with men, I rarely work with men because I don't like it. I explain it like this. They will not even let themselves plug into their emotions. They're so disconnected. They're like, oh, I can't even plug it in to connect to them. That's how disconnected. And I love that there's someone like you who can relate to that turning off of the emotions where you weren't allowed to feel your feelings, that
Right?
you can say, no, I get it. And it's safe. From a man, I think it would just land better, maybe. I don't know. But I get very frustrated when I work with men because it takes so long for us to get the plug in the outlet.
I know, I know. Even my dad is a psychiatrist and a good one. I've heard from people who used to work with him. He was effective, but
Uh-huh.
with his emotions, clueless. And so I grew up in the same way, but thankfully had enough insight that, when I was 30, it's like, wait a minute, this is not sustainable. And I had no idea. I couldn't tell you what I was feeling because I had no idea what I was feeling. So I came up with a grid of the emotions, listed them, and then a grid over time. So like I had a timer. This is before we had phones with timers. I had a timer in my pocket or my office. It went off every hour. What am I feeling? Am I feeling that? No. Am I feeling that? No. Maybe I'm feeling that. And that's how I increase my
That is
EQ.
brilliant. That's a brilliant place to start with men.
Yes. And in this new book that I just published, it has a link
Oh, we
to a.
didn't talk about your book.
We'll talk about it maybe
Okay,
next time.
next
It's
time.
called Conscious Love:
Uh-huh.
Transforming Our Relationship to Relationship. So we did talk about it. We talked about conscious relationships.
But we didn't talk about your book.
There it is, and you put it in the
Okay.
notes along with the website.
Okay.
So yeah, and so anyway, they can access a grid of the emotions, so they can do the same thing I did.
So I do that with my clients too, because even though it's not to the extent that men, I wanted them to become aware of where they sit, where their frequency is all throughout the day. So I wanted 5 points of like, where you at? And it's the emotional scale. So that's where we start too. But your grid sounds a little more details, which is so great. And for mine, it was just for them to track where they're at most of the time. And most of the time when we start working together, they're in worry or fear for the majority of their day, they claim.
Yeah. And even that is helpful, right? Just track, what are you feeling most of the time? Do it every 5 hours, do it once a day. At the end of the day, what did I feel today? Right? Just, it's becoming aware, like what we should, back to the beginning of our conversation, self-awareness.
Yep.
We can't do anything about what we can't see. So that
true.
self-awareness is the first step.
We just looped all the way around. Oh, well, it's been so lovely talking to you. We'll definitely have to do a second. And let me know if there's anything you need from me. Do you have a podcast?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
So I was going to say, I'll keep you in mind for other people's podcasts. Right now, I'm not, but other people's podcasts that would be a good fit for you to be on too.
Thank you so much. And I'll do the same for you.
It's very nice when you have someone that you like click with, and you have like the last 3 that have been so good. You guys are like perfect for me. But some of them you're just like, oh.
And you know what I do? What I have done several of is summits, virtual summits. I don't know that I think that worked during the pandemic because we couldn't be in each other's presence. And so I don't know that those work very well anymore.
Didn't work for me.
Yeah. But what might work is doing a smaller version of that with 5 speakers instead of 20 or 30.
Yes.
And so I'll definitely keep you in mind for that because
That would be a great idea.
I love our philosophies very compatible.
Yeah, that would be a really great idea.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Let's make it happen.
All right. Thank you so much, beautiful.
Yes, thank you. You are just absolutely magnificent, and I will definitely send some men your way.
Thank you.
Some women too.
Much love. We'll stay in touch.
Have a wonderful day.
Thanks.
Bye.